Carmelo Anthony, the teenage suspect in that deadly Frisco stabbing at the track meet, just walked out of the Collin County Jail minutes ago.
When people first hear about a case like this, it's easy to assume it's just another headline, another story that will fade in a few weeks. But this isn't just a case. It's about real people, real families, and the kind of damage that doesn't go away. Carmelo Anthony's actions haven't just broken laws. They've broken hearts, torn communities apart, and left people wondering how far a person will go when they've lost all sense of humanity. And now, because his most recent victim was a newborn baby, things have reached a level of darkness that is hard to even put into words. When someone harms a child, especially a defenseless baby, even the hardest criminals inside prison walls see that as crossing a line. Prison culture is built on a twisted code, but even in that world, there are boundaries. To many inmates, what Karmelo did isn't just wrong, it's unforgivable. I know this firsthand. I spent 10 years behind bars in Texas state prisons.
When this guy was just sitting in Ron's spot and they asked him to move, and he winds up stabbing my son in the heart and killing him.
I lived shoulder to shoulder with men who had lost everything: freedom, families, futures. Some of them had done terrible things, but when it came to crimes against children, there was no forgiveness. Inmates don't look kindly at people like Karmelo. And from what I've heard directly from men still locked inside, word of his crimes has already spread. They're disgusted. They're outraged. They see what he's done, and they know that sooner or later, when he steps into those prison walls, he won't just be facing time. He'll be facing people who want him to pay in ways far beyond a court sentence. But before we get into what prison life will look like for Karmelo, let's step back for a moment. Let's talk about the storm that has erupted outside the prison walls, because the chaos doesn't stop with him. His family, his supporters, and the army of people backing him have now turned their attention to silencing anyone brave enough to tell the truth.
Track meet murder suspect Carmelo Anthony is back at home after he bonded out of jail. Earlier in the day, a judge agreed to reduce his $1 million bond to $250,000. The reduction came after Carmelo Anthony's parents testified during a bond reduction hearing, telling the judge that Carmelo Anthony was a straight-A student, the captain of both the football and track teams, and he had never been arrested before. Plus, he had 2 jobs.
One of those people is Sarah Fields, an investigative journalist based in Texas. Sarah isn't someone chasing clout or throwing around opinions. She deals in facts, documents, records, hard evidence. And that's exactly why Karmelo's team is so furious with her. She isn't spinning stories, she's revealing truths they can't escape from. And to stop her, they've gone to disturbing lengths. Now, if you've been following this case, you've probably already heard about Charleston White. He's a controversial online figure, someone Karmelo's team has been paying to be their so-called voice of the streets. At first, Charleston came out publicly condemning Karmelo. He said straight up that Karmelo deserved life in prison. He wasn't holding back. But then, just like flipping a switch, his story changed.
And his lawyer seems like he's pulling out his playbook early.
Every Texan has the right to defend themselves when they reasonably fear for their life. Self-defense is a protection that applies to each and every one of us. There are 2 sides to every story.
Carmelo Anthony was released on an ankle monitor and required to stay at his parents' home.
Suddenly, he was defending Karmelo, making excuses, trying to rally support around him. What changed? Money. That's all. Charleston has made it clear over and over again that his loyalty is for sale. The moment Karmelo's family and supporters started flashing cash, Charleston stopped calling out Karmelo's crimes and instead turned his attacks towards Sarah Fields. He became their mouthpiece, their shield, their weapon. And Sarah, who is responsible for almost every major update about this case, became his target. It didn't stop with online insults. It didn't stop with defamation. They took it further. Much further. Sarah has publicly shared the nightmare she's been living through. Imagine this: just hours after giving birth to her newborn baby, her home was swatted. Police stormed her house based on fake reports. Her children were terrified. She was still recovering from labor, dealing with exhaustion, and then suddenly had armed officers invading her home. That's not just harassment. That's life-threatening. And it didn't stop there. People connected to Karmelo's supporters began filing false reports with Child Protective Services, trying to take her kids away. Think about the cruelty of that. A mother who just gave birth, already under extreme stress, suddenly has to fight off government agencies showing up at her door because strangers are spreading lies. That's beyond disgusting. That's pure evil. Sarah herself has said that she prayed before making this public, but she decided people needed to know how far Karmelo's army was willing to go. They weren't just trying to discredit her. They were trying to destroy her life, piece by piece, to silence her reporting. And all of this chaos, all of this ugliness, is being fueled by one man's crimes. Karmelo set this fire, and now his family and his paid influencers are throwing gasoline on it. But let's be clear about something. While they can try to intimidate Sarah, while they can try to silence the truth, none of that will protect Karmelo once he steps into a Texas prison. Because inside those walls, there are no cameras, no social media platforms, no online armies. There are only men who live by a different code. Prison is its own world. And in that world, harming a child is seen as the lowest of the low. It doesn't matter how much money you have on the outside. It doesn't matter how many people defend you online. Inside, all that matters is what you did. And once inmates find out Karmelo's crimes, there will be no sympathy. There will be no safe hiding place. I can tell you from experience, when someone with charges like his comes in, word spreads fast. Inmates read paperwork. They trade stories. They know who did what. And once your reputation is marked, there's no escaping it. For Karmelo, that means every day behind bars will be filled with fear, because he'll never know when someone decides to make him pay. And it won't just be random violence. It will be personal. Many inmates have lost their own children while locked up. They've missed funerals. They've missed births. They've lived with guilt and regret. To them, someone like Karmelo is spitting in the face of everything they've already lost. That anger builds, and when it explodes, it won't be pretty. So while Karmelo's family is busy paying Charleston White to spin stories online, the reality waiting for him in prison is far darker. And no amount of money or influence will protect him from that. Let's go back to Sarah Fields for a moment. Because she's the heart of this story in many ways. Despite being harassed, swatted, targeted with CPS, and dragged through the mud by Karmelo's army, she hasn't stopped reporting. She continues to put the facts out there. She continues to hold the line, even when it would be easier to walk away. That kind of courage deserves recognition. But it also shows us just how dangerous Karmelo's supporters have become. They've convinced themselves that he's some kind of hero, that his actions were justified, that the people reporting on his crimes are the real villains. That kind of thinking is not just wrong, it's dangerous. Because it creates an environment where threats, lies, and intimidation become tools to silence the truth. We've seen this play out before in other high-profile cases. Families of victims and the journalists covering their stories often become targets. But what makes this case stand out is how extreme the harassment has been. A newborn baby's life was put at risk because Karmelo's supporters couldn't stand the truth coming out. That's not just crossing a line. That's erasing the line altogether. So where does this leave us? On one side, we have Carmelo Anthony, his family, and the army of people willing to lie, harass, and even put lives at risk to protect him. On the other side, we have journalists like Sarah Fields, families of victims, and communities who are standing up to say, enough is enough. And in the middle, we have the prison system, a place where Karmelo will eventually have to face justice in a way he never expected. Judges and juries can hand down sentences. Lawyers can argue in court. But once he steps behind those gates, none of that matters. All that matters is the prison code. And that code is clear: men who hurt children do not survive easily. To wrap this up, let me say this: Carmelo Anthony may have thought he could escape accountability by buying silence, by weaponizing his supporters, by turning people like Charleston White into shields. But the truth has a way of breaking through. Sarah Fields has shown us that. The families hurt by his actions have shown us that. And soon, prison will show him that as well. Because in the end, no amount of money, no online army, no paid mouthpiece can protect a man from the reality he created. And for Karmelo, that reality is closing in fast. When the truth first came out, many people couldn't believe it. The story was so dark, so twisted, that it sounded almost unbelievable. But the facts don't lie. Sarah Fields, the Texas journalist who has been leading the coverage of Carmelo Anthony's case, made it clear the narrative pushed by his supporters is false. The truth is far more chilling. Karmelo wasn't some misunderstood young man. He wasn't defending himself from a racist or standing up for something noble. No, he was the aggressor. He was the bully. And the victim, the young man who lost his life, wasn't looking for a fight. He was trying to protect his classmates. He was trying to be a hero, standing up against what he thought could become another tragic school shooting. And for that, he was brutally attacked and killed. That truth has shaken people to their core. It has angered families, communities, and even hardened criminals sitting inside Texas prisons. And because Sarah had the courage to reveal it, she has now become the target of Karmelo's army of supporters. This so-called army has shown just how ruthless they can be. They've made it their mission to silence Sarah by any means necessary. They've threatened her life. They've gone after her children. They've tried to destroy her career and her family. All because she refused to stop telling the truth about who Karmelo really was. And at the center of this organized chaos stands Charleston White. Once upon a time, he called out Karmelo himself. He said Karmelo deserved life in prison. He condemned him publicly. But when the money started flowing, his tune changed. Suddenly, Charleston wasn't criticizing Karmelo anymore. He was mocking Sarah, boasting about his wealth, bragging about how lawsuits didn't matter because he had millions. Money, 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 he chants in his videos. Sue me if you want. I'll pay you and still have more left over. That's the attitude he carries, as if justice can be bought, as if truth can be buried under stacks of cash. But inside prison walls, no amount of money will matter. And that's where Karmelo is headed. We don't know exactly how long his sentence will be, but one thing is certain, he will end up inside a Texas state prison. And once he gets there, all the influence, all the online armies, all the money in the world won't be able to protect him. You see, I know this world firsthand. I spent 10 years locked inside those same prisons. I built my entire platform by speaking with inmates, listening to their perspectives, and sharing their voices on real cases just like this. I wasn't guessing. I wasn't making things up. I was living in it, surrounded by it, talking to men who had everything stripped away. And I can tell you this, inmates are furious about Karmelo. They've been angry from the start, but now? Now, after learning about the harassment of Sarah Fields and her family, their rage has only deepened. They don't need another reason to despise him, but now they have one. Why? Because inmates understand better than anyone what it feels like to lose your family. For many men inside, their greatest wound isn't the prison walls or the lost years. It's the children they will never see grow up. The birthdays they missed. The graduations. The weddings. The chance to be there on the first day of school. Some of them are grandfathers now, with wrinkles and gray hair, and they will never hold their grandbabies. They'll die behind bars without ever hugging them. When they lie on their hard steel bunks at night, staring at the ceiling, that pain eats away at them. They know they ruined it themselves. Their actions, their choices, their crimes, that's why they're cut off from their families. They live with that guilt every single day. So when they hear that Karmelo's supporters are intentionally trying to rip a newborn baby from its mother, to weaponize government agencies like CPS against Sarah Fields, it burns them in a way few things can. Because they know Sarah hasn't committed any crimes. She isn't a gang member. She isn't a drug dealer. She isn't some reckless street hustler. She's a wife, a mother, and a journalist who simply wants the truth to be heard. And yet, Karmelo's army has tried to punish her as if she were a criminal. They've swatted her. They've tried to take her children. They've spread lies and threats. For inmates, that kind of cruelty crosses every line. That's why Karmelo will not find mercy inside prison walls. You can believe whatever you want about prisoners. Some people say they're all monsters. Some people say they can never change. I won't sugarcoat it. I was a monster at 19 when I committed my crime. But prison broke me down. It forced me to face what I had done. By the time I was 33, I wasn't the same man anymore. I had grown. I had evolved. I had learned that living without responsibility, without accountability, destroys everything. And many men inside prison have gone through that same transformation. They may never be free again, but they've accepted responsibility. They've chosen to spend what's left of their lives trying to be better, even if society never forgives them. So when they see Karmelo, a man who refuses to accept responsibility, a man whose supporters attack innocent families, they see someone who doesn't belong. Someone who spits in the face of everything they've lost. Someone who has no right to destroy families when they would give anything to have their families back. That's why Karmelo is already hated behind bars, even before he gets there. And once he does, his life will not be safe. The code inside prison is clear: men who harm children or destroy families without reason are at the very bottom. They are the targets. They are the ones who get punished, not by the courts, but by the inmates themselves. Let's not forget Sarah Fields is the reason the public knows so much about this case. Almost every detail you've heard about Karmelo came from her work. She's the head of the snake, and Karmelo's army knows it. That's why they've gone after her so viciously. They think that if they silence her, the story will die. But it hasn't. And it won't. Because Sarah refuses to back down. Despite everything, despite the swatting, the CPS investigations, the threats, she continues to report. She continues to shine light on the truth. And for that, she deserves not only respect, but protection. Prisoners see that too. They may not have freedom, but they recognize bravery when they see it. And Sarah's courage, standing alone against Karmelo's entire army, has won their respect. Meanwhile, Karmelo's supporters continue to spiral. Every move they make only gives inmates another reason to despise him. From the lies they spread to the families they harass, every action adds fuel to the fire. Right now, there are at least 11 separate reasons inmates have told me why Karmelo will be brutalized once he's locked up. 11 reasons. That's not speculation. That's what they're saying directly. And it's only getting worse. By the time Karmelo is finally sentenced, most likely in late 2026, the media storm may have died down. The headlines may have faded. People may have moved on. But inside those prison walls, they won't forget. They'll be waiting. And when the cameras are gone and the noise has settled, Karmelo will have to face a justice no lawyer can protect him from. Mark my words. I've spoken with enough inmates, lived through enough years behind bars, and seen enough men walk into those gates with crimes like his. I've seen what happens. And I can say with conviction, Carmelo Anthony will not escape what's coming to him.